It is once again our pleasure to introduce Dr. Sampadananda Mishra on Sanskrit, and tonight a most important topic. Sampad, can you tell us what Mother has said about Sanskrit, and also how can Sanskrit be taught to Indian children?
Good. It was in the year 1967 when Mother was meeting a few teachers from the Center for Education, and there was a discussion about the afternoon classes, which languages they should teach and how. And one of the teachers came up with the suggestion of Sanskrit. And when Mother heard about it, she said, Sanskrit, it would be wonderful to have Sanskrit. Then she spoke a lot about her ideas about this language, this wonderful language. And among all that she spoke, one of the most remarkable statement that she made that day was, she said, as each and every child born in France has to learn French, each and every child born in India must learn Sanskrit. Such a remarkable statement. And each and every child, no one is left. Now the most challenging part is, how do we bring Sanskrit to the children of India in today's situation? And then which type of Sanskrit? Our Mother has thrown much light on this topic. And she says, a Sanskrit, not of the scholars, but a simple Sanskrit, not simplified, simple by going back to its origin. To going back to its origin means maintaining and containing the original force, flavor, the significance of the root ideas, root sounds, the rhythm, the music, the vibration, the purity of the sounds, the structure, everything has to be so vibrant in that simplicity of the language. Sanskrit is usually considered as a difficult language. A difficult language in the sense that it has been made difficult by the people who have been teaching Sanskrit. It has been made difficult, or it has been considered difficult, because the way it is taught in the schools and colleges and universities or any other places, the very methodology of teaching it has made the Sanskrit language difficult to learn. Actually, there is a greater simplicity in the language itself. The language itself offers a simple form of it, a very lively form of it. And for so many centuries, this language was alive and was used by the people very much in this land, but it got lost. And today's situation in India is such that forget about Sanskrit, even look at the regional languages. There are, say, if you take into consideration all the dialects and sub-dialects, as per the Linguistic Survey of India, so there are more than 700 such dialects or languages in India. But what do we do with such a huge number of languages? It's a linguistically richest country in the world. No country has so many languages, so many linguistic communities. But the situation everywhere, whether you speak of Tamil or Telugu or Hindi or Odia or Bengali or any language in India, the situation is that they are all in a bad condition. People are forgetting, the words are missing, and the influence of English and other languages have become so prominent that I give this beautiful example that if you go to the most remote village in India and if you are carrying a bicycle with you, the most illiterate person who repairs the bicycle has to depend 100% on English to express or speak about all the different parts of the bicycle. Seat cover, bell, brake, tire, tube, rim, spoke, pump. Everything is in English. And what do we do with the 700 languages? If my language is incapable of meeting the new age, meeting the new experiences, and is incapable of creating words which can give expression to new ideas, new objects, then it's not a sufficient language, it's not a complete language. So everywhere, I'll tell you something funny. I heard someone speaking this sentence that मैं तो as far as possible pure Hindi ही बोलता हूँ. The purity of Hindi has come to this level that you find hardly few Hindi words and the rest is English, and that is the purity that is maintained by most of the people in regional languages. And the introduction of many new gadgets, for example, you take the SMS. It has killed the whole spirit of language. The email and especially SMS language is going to, harm all the languages in India. So no one even feels what their language is, because the whole spirit is missing. You just manage communicating something. So communication has become the sole purpose of the language. Just somehow you communicate, and there the role of the language is over. What about the feeling? How do you give expression to beautiful imaginations, beautiful sentiments, all the different emotions? And along with this, the whole sentimental aspect, the emotional aspect is also missing. What is the way out? So there has been in India for centuries, for thousands of centuries, a language which is so alive, so vibrant, so powerful, and such a complete language, Sanskrit. And I feel that that's the way out. It is a complete language in the sense that if it has lost any components of it, if it has lost anything, on its own power, it can retrieve all the lost heritage, all the lost root sounds, all the spirit, flavor. That is the potentiality of this language. And amazingly, this language has the ability to create new words. Any amount of words, enormous amount of words it can create. And it can create new words and supply it to other languages. When textbooks are prepared in regional languages, they have to create new words for the technical terminologies for the textbooks. And what do? They have to depend on Sanskrit, because other languages do not have that capacity to create new words. So they create it depending on Sanskrit, and then they accept it in the regional languages. So Sanskrit is a great creator, a great supplier, and again it is through the regional languages it is alive, or it finds its own life, because it lives in the regional languages also. So Sanskrit and the rest of the languages in India, they are complementary to each other. They can help each other in their growth. So importance must be given to the regional languages, and importance must be given to Sanskrit. And as mother says, each and every child in India must come in contact with this language. And coming in contact with this language means many things. It does many things to our own growth. But the problem is that in India there has been so many organizations involved in teaching Sanskrit to the children. But sadly, it's a matter of regret that not a single organization has been to some extent successful in carrying this responsibility. The problem lies in several things. The first and foremost problem or challenge in teaching Sanskrit to the children is that we have lack of vocabularies, and the present day children are really very brilliant people, brilliant children. They come up with several questions. I give one example, like when I was teaching my daughter Sanskrit, so I gave her two languages from her childhood, my mother tongue, Odia, and Sanskrit. So before she joined the school, she knew only Odia and Sanskrit, no English, no other languages. So sometimes we decide that okay, today is Sunday and whole day we speak only Sanskrit. And I take her to the beach or somewhere else, but we converse in Sanskrit. One day I was taking her to the beach and the whole conversation was going on in Sanskrit, and at a certain point she felt that she should stop and start speaking in Odia with me. But I was little rigid, no, whole day is Sanskrit. Then she put a condition on me, okay, whatever I ask you, if you can tell me in Sanskrit, then I'll continue. If you can't tell me, then I won't continue. And the very next moment, she's asking me, what is polythene bag in Sanskrit? And then I have no words to say. And that's very practical question. And you use those things in your day-to-day life. So many things that we use in our day-to-day life, we have to create new words. If we cannot meet these demands of the children, then we prove ourselves failures in front of them. And once you prove yourself a failure in front of a child, then you kill the interest and enthusiasm.
It seems to me that English is so powerful. How do you transcend English with Sanskrit?
By giving ourselves to our own tradition, our own culture, and our own languages. That spirit has to be there. If we stick to that, I don't say that English is not necessary. English is necessary. Everyone should learn English. But should not use English to kill one's own language. That's the point. But that has been the situation, that we are using English so much that we forget about our own languages. And Sri Aurobindo, when he was speaking about the national system of education, so there he says categorically that a child has to be taught everything till he is 12 years old. Everything has to be given to the child through his mother tongue. And it is such a powerful statement. So if the child is learning everything through the mother tongue, look at how he is building up the grammar in him. The linguistic faculty gets very finely built up when you use your own mother tongue.
So Oxford Dictionary
Yes.
is, every time they make a new dictionary, there are hundreds of new English words. Are there new English words now in Sanskrit?
New English words?
New words in Sanskrit.
There are
during the past,
plenty
let's say,
of,
decade.
There are
I see.
plenty of new words which have come up, and then people are engaged in creating new terminologies and new words. But there again, we have to be very, very careful in creating. What happens is sometimes people create those new words which sound very artificial, and they really do not convey the idea uh, properly or accurately. I'll give you one example. Say microscope. People have created Sanskrit words for microscope. Mostly in South India, they are using the word Sukshma Darshanam or Sukshma Darshini to mean microscope. And the very word Sukshma Darshanam, when you hear it or when anyone hears it, when one is little conscious about the use of words in Sanskrit, so it doesn't really give you the feel of a machine, a mechanism. It rather gives you a feel of something deep, spiritual, philosophical. Sukshma Darshanam, immediately the meaning which appears is a subtle vision. That's more deeper, philosophical or spiritual. It doesn't really, immediately give you a feel of a machine like microscope. At the same time, when I look to the textbooks prepared in Odisha, so they also have created a word for microscope which gives you exactly the meaning and function of the microscope. So instead of Sukshma Darshanam or any other word, they have created the word Anu Vikshanam. So Anu refers to the minutest particle, and Ikshanam means a very concentrated seeing, very penetrated seeing, and we still add some emphasis to it. So Anu Vikshanam means a very penetrated seeing of the minutest particles, and it gives you the feel of a mission. And so one has to take care when one is creating a word. It should not sound artificial, it should not be too big, and it must signify the exact idea or the object, the function of the object, or something of that object which it is referring to. So by hearing it, immediately that sense should come predominantly. So there has been dialogues and debates about how do we create new terminologies, but there are several works which are getting done, and many new words are coming up. And again, there are two different groups. So one group feels that we can adopt English words as they are in Sanskrit, so then it can grow. And other groups are using, instead of giving any thought, just using English words in Sanskrit. But my point is that when we have a language which can create new words, very beautifully it can create new words. So why don't we make effort to convert these words into Sanskrit? So then, and in Sanskrit, when you convert it to any word into Sanskrit, the word itself becomes so self-explanatory. That's the beauty of this language. And sometimes I use this formula if I do not understand any concept or any word. Then I start thinking that what could be the word in Sanskrit, and the very process of translating or rendering it into Sanskrit gives lots of clarity about the concept or about a particular word. So there are several things we can think about it. How do we create new words, and the words should become self-explanatory, directly referring to the object and not sounding artificial. So in a very natural manner, it signifies the object or the idea which we want to refer to. So this is one aspect, and that we need enormous number of vocabularies, creating new words, so then whenever a child asks, we are able to communicate it to the child or teach the child, okay, this is the Sanskrit word for what you are asking. This is very challenging. The other is the type of methodology that we have developed in teaching Sanskrit. We need to think about it, and we need to implement these methodologies in a very practical manner in the classroom situations. There cannot be any fixed methodology. So it has to be progressive. And the methodology differs from classroom to classroom, from group to group, from place to place, depending upon, one has to be very observant. The teacher has to be very observant and sensitive about it, very sensible about it. So then, he looks at the situation, looks at the children, looks at their demand, and especially we have to take care of the child's psychology. So if the methodology that we have developed is not in harmony with what the child wants, then it becomes a failure. And the most important thing is that if we think about a methodology of this nature, and again, like, it has to be progressive every time. We need to change it and we need to improve upon it. But whatever way we do it, we must keep it in mind that through that, we are able to create a kind of sustainable interest and enthusiasm in the student. If that interest, that spirit is not generated, if the child does not understand the value of what he is learning and why he is learning, so then they lose interest. And this lack of interest may lead to the failure. So, and not only the children, sometimes what happens, like when we like new schools are coming up, some schools are ready to introduce Sanskrit at a nursery level, but the problem comes that parents ask this question, like, why Sanskrit in this school? What do our children do taking of Sanskrit? What is the future? Then we need to explain to the parents also. So the work has to be done at many levels. Teachers training program has to be prepared. Parents orientation program has to be prepared. For the children, we need to prepare a lot of innovative and beautiful materials, learning materials. So then they learn in a fun way, not feeling the hardness of the Sanskrit language or the hardness of the grammar or the difficulties that those are there in learning a language. So they should not feel that. So playing, dancing, singing in a fun way, they enter into the spirit of the language. So everywhere we have to keep, whether we teach it through songs or through music or through games or through activities or through nature study or through any other means, we must keep it in mind that we are very much in contact with the spirit, the soul of the Sanskrit. If we cannot impart that, then also it becomes a kind of failure. So we are not, and in the case of Sanskrit, we are not just teaching the language, but we are teaching something else, which is a very powerful force, a Shakti, which has many, a role, many aspects of this language can affect or have a lot of impact on our inner faculties and in the growth of our consciousness. So that aspect also we have to keep in mind while preparing the materials, while teaching, while speaking about it, while orienting the parents. So everywhere that spirit, that deeper aspect of this language we have to communicate to everyone.
And what age is optimum for teaching Sanskrit?
Any age.
Any age.
Any age.
Even
it can start even from the very childhood. If someone wants to bring up the child only in Sanskrit environment, fine. You start speaking Sanskrit to the child from the very
high school
childhood.
students?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the goal has to be introduce Sanskrit to the children of India from the very basic level, even from the preschool level, nursery level. But tremendous amount of work needs to be done. So there has to be, it cannot be achieved by any individual single-handedly. So there has to be a kind of team which must dedicate not only in one place but everywhere. So if somewhere one team gets built up at one place, then others can get inspired by that team or can learn from that team how to go about it. So this is but we need to do tremendous amount of work. For example, you see that the situation in India today, when you speak in the context of introducing Sanskrit to the children, that we have hardly good materials for teaching Sanskrit to the children. We have hardly a book of stories, beautiful stories, presented in a beautiful manner which children can enjoy. We don't have those type of stories. If there are certain books. I don't say that this type of materials do not exist at all. There are, but the way things are presented, the stories are written, they really do not the language which is used there. So it somewhere I'm not happy. Somewhere I'm not happy. There are certain good materials, but maximum materials are not presented properly. So we need to have really good international standards of materials. So then when the child has that book in the hand, feels happy about it. The typeface, the paper, the printing, the color, everything has to be of a good quality, like you find in other languages, English or French or any other languages. We don't have those type of materials. And children enjoy rhyming. And the importance of nursery rhymes when we teach any language at nursery level. So how much the children enjoy nursery rhymes. Matter of regret again that in India we have hardly any book of nursery rhymes in Sanskrit. There are few places where they teach few rhymes, but then again there is a risk. When people hear about nursery rhymes, there are certain friends of mine who are poets and those who compose poems in Sanskrit. So when this new idea of creating nursery rhymes in Sanskrit came, so they started translating the nursery rhymes, English nursery rhymes, into Sanskrit. So for example, one of my friends has composed the Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. So he has made a Sanskrit version of it, saying Twankila Twankila Lalita Stara. And it sounds, I appreciate the mind, I appreciate the effort, but what about the originality of Sanskrit? Why should we imitate? Sanskrit has all strength, all power to create its own nursery rhymes. It has infinite number of chandas. Find out the chandas which are suitable for writing nursery rhymes and compose that way. The songs, writing new songs. Most of the times I hear that there are many popular film songs and they pick up the tuning and then write a Sanskrit song in that. Okay, it sounds nice because people are familiar with that tuning, but what about the spirit of the Sanskrit? The language does not match with the tuning. Okay, so we can create our own songs which are simple, powerful, and conveys something and instills something of the spirit of the language, the spirit of the whole tradition, the spirit of the whole heritage, the civilization. So those type of songs we need to compose, and we have to compose enormous amount of nursery rhymes and come out with lot of materials. I myself have made effort in creating hundreds of nursery rhymes. Of course, in creating that, I have found some suitable chandas, the meters, metrical patterns, which are very much befitting to this whole idea of nursery rhymes. And there are some nursery rhymes which are used, which here in the ashram school, our children learn, and some of the teachers have created really beautiful songs and nursery rhymes. But apart from these few things, if you go outside, you don't find any really good nursery rhymes or songs. So at the nursery level, we can introduce Sanskrit through various means. And the first thing that we can do is we can teach them several poems in Sanskrit, or shlokas, verses in Sanskrit, very simple shlokas with simple tuning, which they can sing, they can understand a little bit of it, or we can find a way how to make them understand. And it will be good, not only some shlokas of the nature of prayers or praises or hymns. Of course, those things one can keep if someone can find some universal prayers, that also is fine. For example, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. May all be happy, may all be well. Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, Sarve Santu Niramaya, may all be free from diseases. Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, may all see happy things. Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet, may none partake sufferings. Beautiful meaning, and we can teach those type of universal prayers where peace is invoked, unity is invoked, oneness is invoked, and courage is invoked, divinity is invoked. So we can teach children those type of simple shlokas with simple tuning, and we can also teach some action songs where the teacher can do the activity in front of the children through dance or through theater activities that we can teach very beautifully to the children. And there are several hundreds of theater activities which are very useful in teaching languages, any language, but we can apply or implement those activities while teaching Sanskrit and teach Sanskrit to the children, and they're very fascinating, interesting, and very involving, engaging, and children will be very enthusiastic to learn about that. Some action songs, and there are certain shlokas in Sanskrit which are of a very different nature, in the sense that I call those shlokas as katha shlokas. It's a small shlok, small verse containing only 4 metrical lines or 4 stanzas, and in that small compact 4 stanza poem you find a whole story described, narrated. I'll give you one example. I'll read out the verse, then I'll explain you. So how these type of katha shlokas can be introduced to the children, so then they learn a story, and that story also has got some values or some moral sayings or moral teaching in that, and they can learn vocabularies and the language by that means. So there is a beautiful verse which has a beautiful story in it. The verse is Uchchairesha taru phalancha pruthulam drishtvaiva hrishta shuka pakvam shalivanam vihaya sahasa tam narikelam gata tatraruhya bubhukshitena manasa yatnah kruto bhedane asha tatra nakevalam viphalita chanchur gata churnatam. This is a verse in a particular meter called Sardula Vikriditam, which has got 19 syllables in each line. And the whole story is that there was a beautiful parrot living in a paddy field, was very happy. And once he was flying and found the huge coconut tree, and he was amazed. He said, "Wow, such a tall tree, and the fruits are so big, and I am living in the paddy field and eating these small grains, and so many grains I have to take to fill in my stomach, and one fruit is here is enough for a few days." So he left the paddy field and went to live in the coconut tree, and he was hungry and he wanted to eat the fruit, and he tried to put his beak into the coconut and tried to go deep in, reach inside of it. But what happened? Not only that he lost the beak, his whole expectation of living in the coconut tree also was killed. So in both way it was not good for him. And there is a message in that, like wherever you are, so be satisfied with that and be happy with that at a material level. So one should not be satisfied at a spiritual level or deeper level. So once you are satisfied, you are gone. Then there is no progress. It is not from that point of view, but looking at the others' progress, others' material progress, and looking at something beautiful, something huge, you should not get excited and leave your own place and then try to live there, and then you put yourself in a lot of problems. So this type of stories convey something which are practical and which teach us something that we experience in our day-to-day life. These are katha shlokas, and there are samvada shlokas, means there are beautiful funny dialogues. Say for example, there's a beautiful dialogue between Ganesha and his brother Kartikeya, and the mother of both Ganesha and Kartika, Parvati. So once Ganesh came crying to his mother Parvati, and Parvati asked Ganesha, "Hey Hiramba, O Ganesha, Kimamba, what mother? Rodishi katham, why are you crying? Karno luthatyagni, that Agnibhu, Kartikeya, my elder brother, is twisting my ear, because Ganesha has big ears because he has the elephant head." Then Parvati turns to Kartikeya and saying, "Kinte skanda vicheshtitam," why this wrong effort, O Kartikeya, on your side? Why do you do that? Then Kartikeya is saying, "Mama pura sankhya krita chakshusham." The Kartikeya has 6 heads and he has 2 eyes on each head, so 6 heads means 12 eyes. He says, "Why is this naughty boy standing before me every time and counting my eyes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that irritates me." So I twisted his ear. And then she turns to Ganesha and says, "Naitate pyuchitam gajasya charitam." He says, "O Gajasya, O elephant-headed Ganesha, this is not good on your part." Then she said, "No mother, you don't know. He is also very naughty. Nasam mimi tembame." So he says, what he does is, because I have a trunk, so he is measuring my nose in his hand. How long is it? And that also irritates me. Then the poet says, "Shrutvevam sutayo giram girisuta smera nana patuva." And Parvati, listening to the dialogues of Ganesha and Kartika, burst into laughter. And the poet says, "May this smiling Parvati have her protection for you all." So this is how there are many beautiful, interesting dialogues which children can enjoy. And the teachers can make it even more interesting by making it a kind of activity, or by whatever means they should know how beautifully they can communicate this to the children, and how children can learn something from this. So these are the different types of shlokas that we can teach. And then songs, beautiful songs. And some of the songs which we are doing here in the ashram school, the children are learning here, are really beautiful. One of the songs I remember, it's not a kind of nursery rhymes, but you can call it a nursery rhymes, but it's a beautiful song, which is an action song, where they learn it like this: "Shundat sum sum shabdam krutva mandam mandam chalati gaja घंटाभिः टन 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 कृत्वा अग्रे अग्रे चलति गज अग्रे अग्रे चलति गज उदरं स्थूलं विस्तृतभालं पर्वतचालं चलति गज मंदं मंदं चलति गज मंदं मंदं चलति गज चरणं चरणं तरुवर सदृशं धम 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 चलति गज मंदम मंदम चलति गज Shundat shum shum shabdam krutva mandam mandam chalati gaja ghanta bhishtan tan tan krutva agre agre chalati gaja. And it's a beautiful scene when you see children doing this song with action with the teachers. Really beautiful. So this type of simple action songs we can introduce, and through that we can introduce many elements of this language, the vocabulary, the structure, new words, the spirit of this language, the music of it, the purity of the sounds, and it's really amazing and beautiful, and it can sustain the interest of the children.
I want to ask you one question. You travel to different countries. You so willingly give talks wherever you're asked. Have you found other people who are willing to join you in this vast work?
Well, I have interactions with a lot of people. When they hear me speaking or see the type of works that I am engaged in, they feel happy about it. They show their willingness, but so far no one has come forward concretely to collaborate in the type of work that I have been doing. But I'm hopeful of, someday there will be a whole team or some people who are interested and may join, and then we can form a beautiful team to work towards this aim.
Well, that is our prayer, that these videos will go to thousands and thousands of people throughout the world, and you will find those people whom you need to realize your vision.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask you to end this evening with the story you told me about a small hill in your village.
I come from a very remote village in Odisha, and once in a year or once in 2 years I go to my village for a few days to live with my parents. And when I'm there in my village, I just go around to see some new places. And one day I was going to a city place, and off the city, just a little outside of that small, I don't call it a proper city, but a kind of a township, you can say. So outside that town, there was a small hillock which attracted me, and I went there. And then I found there the photographs of the mother and Sri Aurobindo. And then I asked some people who were there, so what is this place and why the photographs of mother and Sri Aurobindo? And then they told me that here lived one saintly person, and whoever came to him, so he was sitting with a bunch of flowers, and whoever came to him to do pranam, so he used to give some flowers and asking those people to go and offer it near the photographs of mother and Sri Aurobindo. And that was so beautiful to hear about it, and that saintly person never came to Pondicherry. Yet being there, he always felt the living presence of mother and Sri Aurobindo. And whoever went there, they also in his presence felt that presence of mother and Sri Aurobindo, and it was an eye-opening for me. And the place is really charged with a kind of intense presence, where if someone goes, can feel the presence of mother and Sri Aurobindo, because he kept constantly invoking and feeling that presence intensely, and the place is charged with that presence, and I was very happy.
Thank you so much.
Well, Narada, I have a small gift for you, and the gift is a book titled The Wonder That Is Sanskrit, and The book is prepared by myself and Vijay Bhai, and this book we have prepared with the aim of motivating people about Sanskrit. So it contains a lot of interesting and amazing materials which can really inspire people and create a kind of sustainable interest among the people about Sanskrit. And I'm sure you will enjoy reading this book. And it's my pleasure to gift it to you.
Thank you so much. Our next talk from Dr. Mishra will be on mantra yoga, the power of primal sounds. Thank you so much.